Okay, sorry about that. Okay, well, thanks, Adrian. Thanks, Stuart, for your talk. So I'll get started. So first up, these are my views, nothing to do with my employer. So what did I put the Highland cows on? Well, I put the Highland cows on because lots of companies treat their users like cows. They herd them, they try and direct them, but they don't actually empower them to do what they need to do. So, you know, we do compliance, we do training, and we kind of get herded through like cows. Aren't they beautiful? Isn't Scotland a wonderful country? So, Chatham House rules, if you want to say anything, obviously. So this is the agenda. We're going to talk about challenges, talk about WannaCry, situational awareness, how to fight back, and a weak conclusion. So, ransomware, let's start at the beginning. Ransomware's been around for a long time. It's been around, coined in 1996 as cryptovirology. So, the concept has been around for a long, long time, although obviously sometimes you read in the news, you'd think, oh, it's a new thing. It's only just appeared, but it's been around for a long time. So what's the problem we're facing in most cases? Well, we're facing this issue here that basically we're getting a phishing email. So in comes a classic invoice or a bill. It could be anything. May contain a bit of JavaScript. And typically the user will open this because, again, they've been treated like cows. They've not been empowered to actually think sometimes. And they're following along, and then they get infected. And it could be an online banking Trojan, it could be Drylex, it could be anything. So this is still an issue. And at the root cause of this is that basically people are curious. We're all humans, and we're not really trained to sort of eyeball every email coming in. Imagine you're sitting in your company and you're getting 200 emails a day, 400 emails a day. Are you going to be able to eyeball every email? Probably not. So it's an issue. Then we got the ransomware issue. And ransomware, this is, Eamon's familiar with this. I'm sure he's seen it several times. You come in and you know, there's a customer service aspect to this. There's a bit of psychology going on. They've told you your computer's encrypted. How can you recover your files? What can you do? And how do you pay? And typically it's a Bitcoin and Bitcoin wallets. Hopefully not in Stuart's system, the Bitcoin wallets, but you've got wallets in your system. So we proceed, and then, so this is it. This is how they get you. So firstly, they talk about time criticality. You have to pay me within 24 hours, or you're going to lose all your data. The consequences action, second part. Customer service approach. You don't know how to get Bitcoins, we could ask Stuart, but they'll give you a helpline where you can find out how to get Bitcoins, how to pay them. So it's all very, very nice. And authoritative imagery. Sometimes they put up pictures of the FBI, Met Police, Scottish Police, and say, you know. And then finally, BTC, Bitcoins, that's how they ask you to pay. They ask you to pay in Bitcoins. So it's a bit of a psychological trick in the same way that phishing is. So a lot of this interaction with a computer is designed for, not really designed for humans, so people make mistakes is where I'm coming from. And then if we look at the underground, this is from 2017, so a few years ago, but we see how effective ransomware has been, because one of the top selling items on the underground marketplace is ransomware. Your credit cards, 30 cents, 50 cents, nothing, you know, cash out services, they give you a percentage of the cash out. So a lot of things are available, but ransomware toolkit there, $1,800, so worth a lot of money. And you can make profit as a criminal if you were that way inclined, if you were heading that direction. So if we look at what's happening from the Internet IOCTA report 2018, we see that we've seen a lot more ransomware hitting, and there's been a big takedown by EC3, Europol, and the Dutch National High Tech have been taking action against these sorts of things. But we still saw a lot of ransomware happening recently. Big event was Maersk. Maersk had to reinstall 45,000 PCs, 4,000 servers, and they were out of action for approximately, I don't know, 2 weeks or something, where they had to do everything manually because they had no computing capability. But there was a positive. The CEO saw this as a good side of the incident because it really it was an important wake-up call. I think that the challenge for everyone is that you don't want to have to be a Maersk. You don't want to wait for the wake-up call. You want to get your defenses in before that happens if you can. And that's really what you need to focus on as cyber people. Then let's look at WannaCry. So WannaCry, Microsoft released the patch in roughly about March 2017. We then saw the Shadow Broker leak, where some of the kits were used, and then WannaCry hit using some of the Shadow Broker kit. And the really interesting thing is that this was a global problem, right? So WannaCry hit across the whole globe. It wasn't just a UK problem. Although obviously it did hit the UK, Scotland, and the United Kingdom. But it shows how something like a piece of ransomware can be incredibly disruptive if it's let loose on the internet, and so it is a major threat. And kind of last year, 2018, we were still seeing 75,000 victims of WannaCry across the world. So it's still, people haven't patched, they haven't blocked things. So it just goes to show it's a real challenge. From a defensive perspective, if people aren't taking any action, it's really hard to defend. And then just recently, this year, we had the Norsk Hydro attack. Looked like it was destructive malware attack at Norsk Hydro. Norwegian aluminium company Hydro was struck. And again, another example of ransomware, destructive malware hitting a company and causing them serious losses. So this is an ongoing problem. Ransomware cannot be underestimated. Now we're coming on to Stuart's talking about cryptocurrency miners. So cryptojacking is a new thing. So as we've transitioned from ransomware to crypto mining, so why are we going to crypto mining? Well, because I no longer have to ask you to pay Bitcoins. I'm just going to use your computer for free, and I'm going to mine Bitcoins. So I'm going to make profit that way. So from a criminal perspective, this is an easier win because I don't have to do anything like ask you to pay Bitcoins. It's a very straightforward. I'm just going to use your computer and it'll be fine. Yeah, don't worry about it. It might get a bit hot, but you know, I'll make some Bitcoins out of it. And then we look at the other issues. We're seeing financial malware. This is an example of Carbonate Cobalt, where again, it's the same attack vector. There's spear phishing email coming in. The user, the user again clicks on it, infects a number of machines, and then there's the cash out. So money transfer, inflating balance accounts, and controlling ATMs, different attack vectors that they use to cash things out from. So, and then we had this from the IOCTA report last year. So DDoS is an issue, can take down services, obviously, and as we become much more internet focused and service dependent, we're completely dependent on cloud services and different applications now. So if the criminals can attack a service, then potentially they can take down industry and the business and cause issues. So this is an example where the stressor site, which is basically a stressor site, basically is used as a DDoS tool, distributed denial of service, and in this case, they were able to take it down using combined efforts of law enforcement. So a great effort from law enforcement there. And then if we kind of go forward in time, where's everything going? So everything, and Stuart probably testified to this, everybody's going to their phone, right? Everything's going to be on the phone. Everything's going to be an application. You may have APIs, but everything's going to be an application. So we're going to have everything, probably our health records, everything from the phone will be accessible, right? So we absolutely need encryption, security of the data, and we need to be able to defend this. Because if we look at mobile malware, it's an evolving topic, and I think as we go forward in time, in the future, when well, you may even have printed circuit boards on your arm, but let's assume that's not the case. Let's assume we've still got devices. Then this is where it's going to go, because everybody wants to do everything conveniently, quickly, from their phone, with no bother, right? And then it wouldn't be complete talking about issues if we weren't talking about card not present fraud, where basically people are stealing money using instant payments where they don't actually need to have the card present. So again, still an issue reported by IOCTA 2018 report. And then, of course, we come on to my favorite topic, cryptocurrency. So what's happening in cryptocurrency? So we're seeing hacks on exchanges. We've seen lots of attempts to steal money directly from exchanges. Phishing people for their account details. Of course, we've already talked about crypto mining. Ransomware payments, we've already talked about. And then information stealing malware. So lots of attack vectors on cryptocurrency. And why? Well, we all know the price has just gone up again. So it's worth it from a criminal's perspective to attack this. But it shows, again, how we need to build security into these cryptocurrencies or distributed ledger technologies. It's absolutely fundamental. It has to be in there from the ground up, from the very beginning. Otherwise, we can't rely on the old models to defend. So this is showing cryptocurrency use. And the reason I put this up here is because we saw the peak at 2017, and then it dropped off to 603 in 2018. This is money going to the dark markets. The reason I put it up there is because in 2017, we saw the law enforcement have their Hansa market take down. So that really successful piece of work, and you can show they had a direct effect. But they didn't completely kill the market, as you can see, but they have made a $100 million impact on the criminal funds. But of course, the danger is this could recover, so we can't be complacent in any way. So where's the money going? So if we're trying to create a new security environment like Stuart talked about, or a new approach, we need to look at where the money's going. So we see money going in lots of different places here. We see money going for illicit online markets, trade secret, intellectual property theft, data trading, which is just cards, and then ransomware was $1 billion there. So lots of losses happening, and this is really where security comes to its own. This is where it should be defending these key losses. Because if you think about it, what's the point in security unless it's helping the business succeed? If it's not helping the business succeed, it isn't actually doing its job. So I think every business needs to look at what value do they have, what's their crown jewels, and what can they do about it to protect it. So if you've got intellectual property theft, you could protect it potentially with a distributed ledger technology, encrypt it. But I think it's fundamentally, as Stuart said, we need to protect the data. We need to protect the things of value for each organization. That may be intellectual property, that could be film copyright, that could be music pirating, that could be anything which your company holds of value, basically. So what's the problem? Well, I think the key issue at the human level, going back to the human level, is paying attention. What's happening? If you're not paying attention, how do you know there's an issue? So let's a concrete example. You could get somebody coming into your company, standing in the public space, and does anybody question why they're there? What's that person doing there? So good security is about looking for changes in the baseline, so what you expect to happen, and then reacting to it. And that's not just walking by whistling like this guy, it's actually paying attention and actually noticing what's happening. Because if you're unable to defend even your basic public spaces, you're potentially creating a security risk. Now, you might be able to, so Stuart may have his private keys in his building, but if I can get into that building, I can potentially steal those private keys. So this is about the basics, people being observant about what's going on around them and not just walking past. And then when you see an anomaly, we tend to sort of want to ignore things because I see an anomaly, I'll just put my fingers in my ear and I'll ignore it, basically, because I don't want to get involved. But again, the moment you see an anomaly, you need to train your users to be able to challenge. So if I see this man here walking into my building and I don't recognize him, I should be able to feel fully empowered to challenge him and get him out of the building if I want to. This is about empowering the users and being aware of what's happening, okay? If you're unable to do that, if your users aren't trained and they're treated like cows, as I showed the cow picture earlier, then maybe they don't feel empowered to challenge. But this fundamental of physical security is most important, because it doesn't matter how much tech you've got in the room to defend yourself. If I can walk into the front door and I can get into the building and I can plug in a USB and steal data, then, well, great, I've just got your secure key. I've just got your private keys because you left them on a server sitting in a network because you thought you were secure. So I think this is a real important thing to get this communication and training through to users so they really understand. When they see an anomaly, they do something about it. They need to be empowered. I've got a good example of a red team test, well, social engineering test that somebody told me about the other day. Guy came in, and imagine this is just a charger cable. So he went into the room, and he said to guys, I just want to test your computers with this charger cable to see if the mobile will connect and charge okay. Is that okay? So he plugged in the charging cable on its own, without a phone, into the computer, and he had a little switch in his pocket and some malware sitting on the thing, and he pressed the button, and up on the user screen popped the successful test and a big smiley face. So the users just quite happily let this guy plug in a standard mobile charging cable, and the next thing he did, he simply pressed a button and up popped the screen. So he did that successfully with 12 users in the company, and nobody challenged him. Nobody thought, isn't that a bit strange that he hasn't connected the phone to the charging cable? He's pressing a button in front of me explicitly saying, okay, let's do it. So this is another example where the users need to be empowered to challenge and think about strange stuff happening and anomalies. If an anomaly is happening, they need to be able to challenge it. They can't be allowed to fall under the weight of believing that everything's okay and everyone's trust. We're fighting a human nature. We're struggling, of course, because we all want to help people. We want to be really helpful, but we just need to maybe be a bit more empowered, a bit more challenging, and make the users not the cows, but maybe the bulls, and actually challenge people more. Situation awareness, again, young lady here, the mobile phone is probably the curse of the modern society. Everybody's constantly on their phone. I see it every day on the train. Everybody's looking at their phone, obsessed with their phone. Some people in the audience may be looking at their phone right now. And it's a complete loss of context and awareness. So, good example here. So we've got the lethal combination, I call it, where people are looking at their phone and they've got their earphones plugged in as well, and they're walking in a dark space. Now, really, probably a suboptimal plan. I think you need to be looking around you and being aware of your situation, the context. Is it a risk? And it's not just about, so this is a physical risk, which we tend to ignore, but you can translate this into the cyber risk as well. So if we look at a cyber situation awareness program, then maybe you're processing something and you're really busy and you're trying to do 5 or 6 things at the same time. You're looking at your phone, you're doing this, you're taking a phone call, somebody's speaking to you, but then you're on your computer and you click that link because you're doing so many things, you're cognitively overloaded. So I think you can apply this awareness to physical situations as well as to cyber situations, and you need to deal with that. And it's all about empowering the users. The users need to be alert and aware to what's going on around them, and they need to be able to say to somebody, no, I don't want you taking my picture, I don't want this happening, whatever it is, right? They need to be able to say the right thing, because without that inner strength and that ability to challenge people, then they'll just be the normal passive selves and they'll just accept whatever's happening around them. But I think that's the real message here, is we need to empower our users and say, no, I'm not prepared to accept. I'm not prepared to share my data with you just because I want to get an insurance policy with you or whatever it is, okay? So I need to understand that. And as a kind of my favorite bit, breaches everywhere, it shows that, we're basically failing in security industry. We're not really securing stuff well enough. We've got so much data getting lost. And why is this data not controlled better? Why do we not have things in place to control people's personal data and prevent this thing happening? Well, Stuart may have a solution with his company. My view is that we should be looking at a brand new way of thinking. So I think we need to be thinking about having our data, but having it secured in our own wallet. And if I want to do a contract with Stuart or whoever, then I should be able to lend only a key which accesses the data you require for that service. And in fact, what I'd actually prefer to do is I'd actually prefer to use a processing algorithm which doesn't allow you access to the data, but actually processes the data, and only the algorithm can see the data. So I'd actually like to see this situation, but one step further, I'd actually like to see users fully empowered, so that when I've got my wallet with all my data, my medical data all in it, I actually get paid for sharing it with you. So for you, to allow your algorithm to run it. So when your algorithm runs it, you give me a small fee. So I sit here and I actually earn money from my data, as opposed to this passive situation where currently I just hand data over to you and you don't even pay me, right? So I think we need to move to a new model where we have tokens, we have data, but we actually only allow people to access that data if they're prepared to pay you for your data. So it's a complete inversion of existing models. You can still do all the assurance that you currently have. It's just a different model. So instead of me handing my data off randomly to any company that decides they need it because they need for whatever reason, if they want to do it, they can do it, but they don't actually get my data. They just get they have an algorithm which processes the data and then gives them a result. So they could, Disclosure Scotland, Stuart, in your case, you wouldn't hand over your personal data. You'd hand over a wallet, a key to your wallet, which only the algorithm would process, and then Police Scotland would get an output saying, yes or no, is this person okay? So you wouldn't actually ever lose your data. It would never leave your wallet. The only thing it would see it would be the algorithm. So just an idea, and I think we need to sort of empower ourselves. It's, again, my whole theme here is about empowering users, but empowering users to control their data as well, not just their security environment, but their data. So can we empower our citizens to have control of our data? That's really where I'm kind of coming towards the end. So coming towards the end, prevention is better than a cure. You need to be situationally aware of what's going on both in the cyber and the real world. I can't emphasize this enough. A lot of the education on cyber is based around sitting in front of the computer, but actually we need to look holistically at the problem. So look at the real world. Obviously keep everything patched, and the reason for that is WannaCry, really, is self-evident. Keep your staff educated, but not just educated, but empowered. Empower them to act, to challenge people. Keep your systems backed up, ideally on a blockchain, secure blockchain, I think we need to think about new business models for data and security. How can we empower our users to secure their data, share it in a way that doesn't put them at any risk? So all these breaches happen to these companies, it doesn't affect me because guess what? They didn't have my data, they just processed it. And then my final point, network segmentation firewall, the basics, really the basics of security need to be implemented all the time. Because a lot of the time, it's just the basics that people make mistakes on, and that's why we see failures. So we look at the OWASP top 10, it hasn't changed in 15 years substantially. There's still the same errors. We're not actually solving application security issues. And unfortunately, as we head towards potentially the app economy, as Gartner calls it, in the future, then everything's going to be an app. So if we can't secure the apps, we're not really doing anybody any service. So we need to be thinking about these new models of securing data. And as I say, the app economy, the API economy, whatever you want to call it, whichever one you use, you need to be able to secure it appropriately. Now, if that requires segmentation and firewalling, that's an old technique, I know, but translate it into the modern world of securing, putting your protection around the data, and I think that's the recipe for success. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. Fantastic. So last, but by no means least, one of our favourite presenters, we have M&T,
Yeah, I'll get it done.
who will present Let's Make the Mask of Cybercrime. Let's take the mask of cybercrime.